My name is Marianne Ellery, 45 years old. The late summer sun bled through a haze of barbecue smoke as I turned down my sister's street, balancing a warm peach pie on the passenger seat. The scent of cinnamon and butter filled my car, the kind of smell that once meant family. Kelly's house sat gleaming behind a manicured hedge, the house I'd helped her buy 5 years ago. $40,000, no paperwork, no repayment plan, just trust. When I reached the gate to the backyard, laughter drifted through the slats, sharp and easy, the sound of people who believed they belonged. I lifted my hand to open the latch, then froze when I heard my name. "Where's Marianne?" That was Kelly. Her tone carried that familiar mix of amusement and impatience, like I was an overdue bill she didn't want to pay. Someone mumbled something back, and then Kelly's voice cut through the air again, clear this time. "I hope she got into an accident and won't come." The laughter that followed was quick and bright, the kind of laughter that hides cruelty under charm. My mother's giggle, my father's deep chuckle, even Kelly's husband, Mark. I could have sworn I heard one of the kids. My heart thudded against my ribs, slow at first, then faster. For a moment, I thought I might drop the pie. Then, instinct, that old reflex to save face, took over. I straightened my shoulders, pushed open the gate, and walked in. Conversations faltered. Only the sizzle from the grill filled the silence. My mother glanced up, gave a stiff nod. My father cleared his throat. Kelly turned a steak with exaggerated focus. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "Sorry if I'm late." No one replied. The tension wrapped around me like plastic. I placed the pie on the table beside a bowl of salad, the condensation from the glass dish fogging against the metal tray. For a heartbeat, I wanted to walk out, to get back in my car, drive away, and never look back. But I stayed. I'd stayed my whole life. The next 3 hours passed in excruciating politeness. Kelly floated between guests like a perfect hostess. Mark made jokes I didn't laugh at. My parents chatted with neighbors about the price of roofing repairs. Emma and Tyler darted past me playing tag, their laughter soft, unburdened. I sat in a corner chair, quiet, invisible. A ghost who once paid the bills. Every now and then, someone reached for a slice of pie. They ate it, murmured something vague like, "This is nice," then moved on. By the end of the night, the dish was scraped clean. Not a single word to me about it. When the last guest left, I helped clear plates, stacking cups, wiping sauce stains from the table. Kelly didn't thank me. Neither did anyone else. As I drove home, the streetlights blurred through my windshield. I replayed the words over and over. I hope she got into an accident and won't come. That night, I didn't change my clothes. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. My reflection in the dark window looked foreign, a woman who had mistaken giving for belonging. I made a mental list, one I already knew by heart. $40,000 for Kelly's house, $3,000 for Emma's braces, $1,500 for Tyler's school computer, $20,000 for my parents' new roof. Countless gifts, vacations, dinners, and loans I never called loans. Each item felt like a receipt for a love that had never really existed. By morning, the anger had hardened into clarity. I poured myself coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and picked up my phone. There was only one person I trusted enough to call, Rachel, a friend from the divorce years, a lawyer who understood money, but more importantly, understood betrayal dressed as family. When she answered, I said quietly, "It's me. I need some advice." Her voice softened. "Come by this afternoon, Marianne. Bring your documents. Will, insurance, everything. We'll go through it together." I looked around my kitchen. The peach pie dish sat in the sink, spotless, rinsed clean before I even realized I'd washed it. It gleamed like an empty mirror. I dried my hands on a towel and whispered to no one in particular, "Never again." Rachel's office smelled like eucalyptus and fresh paper, a careful calm designed to keep people from unraveling. The walls were pale gray. A framed law school diploma hung beside a photograph of a coastline at low tide, rock pools, ribbed sand, a horizon so clean it almost looked surgical. I sat on the leather chair and placed my folder on the desk, the one that held the entire architecture of my life: will, powers of attorney, beneficiary forms, bank statements, insurance policies, the house deed, all of it. Rachel studied my face before she reached for the folder. "You look like someone who's been practicing forgiveness for too long." "I overheard them," I said. The words tasted metallic. Kelly said she hoped I got into an accident so I wouldn't come. They laughed. Rachel's eyes didn't widen. They steadied. I'm sorry. Tell me what access they currently have. I slid the top document across. Kelly's my medical and financial power of attorney. She's listed as a beneficiary on insurance. She's an authorized user on my checking card. My parents are secondary beneficiaries in my will. Emma and Tyler are listed too. Rachel turned pages with a deliberate, quiet precision. The 40,000? Gift, I said, no paperwork. She nodded once, the way surgeons nod when the x-ray confirms what they already knew. Then it's gone, Marianne. I'm not being unkind. I'm being precise. A gift with no conditions is irrevocable. I stared at a nick in her desktop, a crescent moon of missing varnish. So the money is a bruise I'll keep, but I can refuse to keep punching myself. Exactly. Rachel set my folder squarely on the desk, palms on either side. Here's what we do. First, revoke the powers of attorney and designate neutral professionals instead of family. Second, update your will and remove beneficiaries you no longer want. You can name individuals, charities, or a trust. Third, contact your bank and remove your sister as an authorized user, change your online credentials, and update your security questions. Fourth, audit every automatic payment and beneficiary designation across accounts. Fifth, secure your home, locks, document storage, shred old authorizations. I exhaled for what felt like the first time since the barbecue. How fast? Today, she said. The law is a clock if you know how to set it. We worked. Rachel drafted revocation letters for both medical and financial powers of attorney and prepared new documents naming a fiduciary service as my agent. She revised my will, moving my parents, Kelly, and the children from primary and contingent status. We can revisit the kids later if you choose, she said. Keeping a door unlocked is not the same as letting people inside. I initialed paragraphs. I signed where yellow flags told me to sign. A notary appeared, quiet as an usher, and watched the ceremony of ink and intention. My hands stopped trembling after the third signature. Take these originals, Rachel said, handing me a neat, ribboned stack. Store them somewhere safe that isn't your house. A deposit box is fine. I'm keeping copies. I'll also send formal notices where statute requires. I hesitated. There's one more thing. The house. I want to make sure it can't become an inheritance battlefield. We can set up a living trust for the property with clear posthumous instructions, she said. But if your goal is to cut off the possibility of familial access, you can direct the sale at death and the proceeds to a charity or a donor-advised fund. Your call. Sale, then donation, I said, surprised at how steady I sounded. I don't want the house to be a monument to anyone's entitlement. Rachel leaned back, the faintest curve of approval in her mouth. You're not being vindictive, Marianne. You're being specific. There's a difference. By noon, I was back in my car, the folder belted in beside me like a small, precious passenger. The sun had climbed high. The sky was bleached linen. I drove straight to the bank. The branch manager, Susan, met me in her glass-walled office. She'd known me for years. The concert tickets I'd raffled for the food bank. The quiet way I liked forms printed in duplicate. She gestured to the chair. What can I do for you? I need to remove my sister as an authorized user on my accounts, I said. Cancel her card. Reissue mine. Change all my online credentials and security questions. Also, I want to review every recurring charge and linked device. Susan tapped her keyboard. Understood. I'm starting with the card. Her brow knit. She's used it for grocery runs and school supplies mostly. There are also some small monthly charges, streaming bundles, cloud storage, children's educational app, low amounts. Nothing technically improper as an authorized user, but she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The taking had learned to look like need. Remove everything, I said, and please flag any device logins that aren't mine. Susan nodded, still typing. We'll issue you new cards and account numbers. I recommend you change the answers to your security questions to non-truths. Treat them like passwords. Like, what street did you grow up on? Answer with tortoise. She smiled. Exactly that sort of chaos. We spent an hour verifying signatures, printing forms, changing numbers, scrambling truths into safe nonsense. When Susan finally slid a temporary debit card across the desk to me, it felt less like plastic and more like a tiny, rectangular boundary. Done, she said. If there's any attempt to use the canceled card, you'll get an alert. I'll also add a note to your profile that we need in-person verification for any future authorized users. Thank you, I said, for being quick. She softened. Sometimes speed is a kindness. In the car, my phone buzzed before the engine turned over. Kelly. I let it go to voicemail. A text appeared 3 seconds later. Kelly, what did you do? My card got declined at Office Max. I was buying folders for the kids. Call me. I watched the bubbles in my water bottle rise and break. The second text arrived. Kelly, is this some kind of mistake? Fix it. There was no please. There had never really been one. I drove home, locked the door behind me, and placed the folder on my kitchen table. The peach pie dish sat on the counter, winking in a square of light. I turned my phone face down and made tea. When it buzzed again, I let it. Then the screen lit with Mom, then Dad, then Mark. I brewed another cup. Finally, I answered. Kelly didn't say hello. What the hell, Marianne? I removed your access, I said, keeping my voice level. The card you gave me. I added you years ago to make things easier when you were juggling babies and bills, I said. It was a favor, not an entitlement. You're overreacting, she snapped. I was buying school supplies for your niece and nephew. I heard you yesterday, I said quietly. The kitchen hummed with refrigerator white noise. I heard you say you hoped I got into an accident and wouldn't come. Everyone laughed. Silence, then a brittle laugh. That was a joke. It wasn't, I said. Not to me. It was a sentence dressed like a smile. You're being ridiculous. You know how Mom gets. She laughs at anything to fill a silence. And Dad, he didn't even hear what I said. Her voice quickened, an anxious patter. You're making a mountain out of... I'm making a boundary out of a bruise, I said. I've changed my will. I've revoked the powers of attorney. You no longer have access to my accounts. Don't come to my house uninvited. I took a breath, the kind that reaches your spine. If you need school supplies, buy them with your money. You are unbelievable, she hissed. After everything we've done for you. I didn't laugh. What have you done for me, Kelly? We're family, she said, as if the word itself were a receipt. That used to mean something. It still does, I said. It means telling the truth out loud. Here's mine. I will not fund people who wish me harm, not even as a joke. She tried a new key. The kids, she said softer. Don't punish the kids. I'm not, I said. Emma called me. She apologized, sincerely. That isn't punishment. That's a person earning trust back. You're letting a teenager play you, she said, venom under velvet. God, Marianne, you always need to feel like the noble one. I looked at the gleaming pie dish, catching the afternoon sun like a plate-sized coin. No, I said. I finally need to feel like a person. She scoffed. You'll fix this by tomorrow. I can't deal with the bank and the mortgage and... I'm not your contingency plan, I said. We're done here. Wait, she said quickly, the first crack of fear in her voice. Please don't do anything to the house. I mean, if something happens to you... I let the silence sit. It turned the air cool. You thought I wasn't listening, I said. I was. Marianne. I won't discuss my estate with you, I said. Do not call me for money again. Do not try to enter my home. Do not use my name as a promise to your friends. She breathed hard into the phone. This is a phase. You always get dramatic and then calm down. Not this time, I said, and hung up. The phone rang again, and I turned it off. I took the folder and slid it into a canvas tote with a zipper. Then I stood on a chair and eased open the cupboard above the refrigerator, where I kept my Dutch oven, holiday platters, things too heavy or too rarely used to sit within reach. I pushed the tote into the back corner, deep behind the baking sheets, and closed the cupboard. I changed the lock code on my front door. I wrote tortoise in looping cursive on a sticky note and stuck it to the inside of a cookbook. Not a reminder, a small, private joke about questions with trick answers. I pulled a chair to the kitchen window and sat with my tea, watching the light move across the wall like a slow, golden hand. When the sun touched the pie dish again, it flared, a coin bright enough to make me blink. I let it. Some things hurt before they heal. My phone, black and face down on the table, stayed quiet for a long time. Then it lit once, a single vibration. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I picked it up. Unknown. Aunt Marianne? It's Emma. Can we talk? I looked at the cupboard, the place where I'd put the papers that could no longer be taken, and then at the small, stubborn light in my palm. Maybe, I said to the empty room and typed, tomorrow after school, neutral cafe, 1 hour. I hit send and turned the phone off again. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime sang 3 uncertain notes in a row and then found a 4th. The locksmith arrived before noon, a quiet man in a gray uniform with a patch that read Elias. He moved efficiently, barely speaking except to ask, "Front and back, same key?" "Yes," I said, "and make 3 copies." He replaced the locks within 15 minutes. The old keys lay on the counter like relics from a past life. One of them, still attached to a small silver heart keychain, had once belonged to Kelly. I ran my thumb over it, then dropped the entire set into the trash. When Elias left, the silence that followed was almost holy. Later that afternoon, I drove to the law office Rachel had recommended. The brass plaque on the door read, "David Thompson, Real Estate and Trust Law." He looked like someone who'd spent his life sorting other people's chaos into folders. "I want to create a lifetime trust," I said, sitting across from him. "The property will stay under my control while I'm alive, but after I die, it must be sold. Every cent should go to charity. I don't want my family involved. At all." David raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. "Understood. You'll be both trustee and beneficiary while living. We'll name a charitable executor for after." We spent 2 hours drafting, signing, and notarizing documents. The sound of the notary's stamp pressing down on paper was strangely satisfying, a punctuation mark on years of misplaced generosity. When David handed me the folder, it felt like armor. "Keep this somewhere safe," he said, "and maybe tell someone you trust where it is." I almost laughed. Now that list is short. By the time I got home, the sun had started to fade. I parked in the driveway, turned off the engine, and just sat there. The neighborhood was still, sprinklers ticking, children's laughter echoing faintly down the block. Then I saw it, Kelly's car pulling up behind mine, Mark in the driver's seat. I froze. They got out and walked to my door. The knocking started immediately, sharp, insistent. "Marianne, open the door," Kelly shouted. "We need to talk." I didn't move. "Marianne!" The knocking grew louder. "This is insane! Open the door!" Then the sound changed, a metallic scrape. I knew it instantly, a key turning in the lock, her old key. It didn't work. "What the— She changed the locks," Kelly hissed. "Mark, she changed them." "She's serious this time," he muttered. "Let's just go." "No," Kelly pounded harder. "Marianne, this is ridiculous. You can't just—" Her voice broke mid-sentence. For a moment, she sounded less angry than frightened. But I didn't open the door. Instead, I turned on the TV. Some cooking show where a cheerful host whisked batter like the world had no problems, and let the noise drown her out. Eventually, the knocking stopped. Tires crunched over gravel. Silence again. I sat for a long while before realizing I'd been holding my breath. The next morning, a text arrived from an unknown number. "Aunt Marianne, it's Emma. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. "Tomorrow after school. The cafe on 5th. She showed up exactly at 4, wearing a navy hoodie and clutching a notebook like a shield. When I opened the door of the cafe, she gave a small, uncertain wave. "Aunt Marianne," she said softly. "Hi, sweetheart. Come sit." We ordered cocoa and lemon cake. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Emma said, "I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. For what Mom said. For laughing. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her voice trembled, and I realized she was rehearsing the apology, something she'd probably practiced in her head all day. "I believe you," I said, "but it did hurt." "I know," she whispered. "Mom said you overreacted, but I think she just doesn't want to feel guilty." I studied her face. Kelly's eyes, but softer, unguarded. "It wasn't just that one day, Emma. It was everything before it. Years of giving and pretending it mattered." She nodded. "I get that now. You've always helped us. I remember the computer you bought Tyler, and the trip to the coast. Mom said you didn't mind paying because you didn't have kids of your own, but I think that was wrong to say." "It was," I said. "Love isn't a transaction." Her cocoa sat untouched. She traced the rim of the cup with her fingertip. "Do you hate Mom?" "I don't," I said slowly, "but I don't trust her. That's different." She looked down, her voice barely audible. "I miss you." Something in me softened. Not the wound, but the edges of it. "You can still visit me," I said, "but I need time to heal, to make peace with what happened." Emma nodded. "I'll wait. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." We talked for another hour about school, friends, college plans. She wanted to study art. I told her she should. She smiled, shy but genuine. When we said goodbye, she hugged me tightly. "You're still my favorite aunt," she whispered. I smiled. That's not a high bar, but I'll take it. Back home, I opened the folder David had given me and slipped in one of Emma's drawings, a watercolor she'd painted years ago, of a house with a crooked fence and a peach tree beside it. I'd forgotten I still had it. Then I noticed something tucked between the pages of my old will, A photograph. I hadn't seen it in decades. It was from a family picnic when Kelly was 6 and I was 13. In it, Kelly sat between our parents, grinning with a popsicle in her hand. I stood off to the side, half cut from the frame, holding the cooler lid. Everyone else was in sunlight. I was in shade. The image told the story better than any diary could. I slipped the photo into a separate envelope and sealed it shut. That night, I dreamed of that picnic again. But this time, in the dream, I walked into the frame. I stood behind them, not smiling, not sad, just present. When I woke, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace mixed with distance. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. A few days later, the phone rang again. Kelly's number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was small this time, not sharp. "Marianne," she said, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I went too far. We all did. But we're struggling right now, and I thought maybe you could help. Just a little for the kids." There it was. The apology folded neatly around the request. I deleted the message. Then I opened my window, breathed in the cold evening air, and whispered, "Not anymore." It began with a decision made in silence, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. I realized no matter how many locks I changed, I'd never truly have peace in that house. They knew where to find me. They could show up, pound on the door, demand explanations, and every time they did, I'd feel that old instinct tugging at me, to defend, to explain, to forgive too soon. So I decided to disappear, not out of spite, but for air. I called Tom, an old realtor friend who'd helped me and my ex-husband sell our rental property years ago. "Tom, I need something small, quiet, and fast," I said. "No for sale signs, no family contact. I want to sell my house privately and move somewhere no one knows about." He paused for a moment. "Understood," he said. "I know just how to do that." Over the next 2 weeks, we moved in whispers. Tom listed the house off market, sent only trusted buyers, and arranged the paperwork through private escrow. By the time Kelly realized I wasn't answering her messages, the sale had already closed. I packed slowly, a few boxes each night, so the neighbors wouldn't notice. Every room felt like a body shedding its skin. Photos, furniture, memories. In the kitchen, I left behind one thing, the silver pie dish. It gleamed under the faint light, like a relic of everything I refused to carry forward. My new apartment was smaller, 2 bedrooms, pale light filtering through big windows, a quiet hum from the city below. No one knew the address. Not my parents, not Kelly, not even Emma. I told her I'd moved, but not where. She didn't ask. She just said, "I understand." And somehow I knew she meant it. Within a month, I built new rhythms. Mornings volunteering at the food bank. Afternoons spent painting in a community class. Evenings reading by the window. The sound of distant traffic replacing the noise of family expectation. I'd thought solitude would feel like punishment. Instead, it felt like oxygen. One afternoon, while organizing donations, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Ellery, this is Janet from the Bright Horizons Foundation. We're holding a fundraiser next month for families facing eviction. Would you like to attend?" Attend? No. But something inside me shifted. "How much would it cost to sponsor the entire event?" I asked. She hesitated. "That's generous. Around 100,000. I smiled. "Then consider it done." The next day, I transferred the money. That was the same amount I'd once planned to surprise Kelly with for her 40th birthday. Back then, I'd wanted to give her something to prove I wasn't bitter, to show I could still be the good sister. Now, that money would shelter people who actually needed it. The thought filled me with a quiet, genuine joy, the kind that doesn't require applause. A week later, I met Emma for her 15th birthday. We sat in a small cafe near her school, sunlight catching the steam from our drinks. I handed her a card with $500 inside. Her eyes widened. "Aunt Marianne, this is too much." "It's not," I said. "But it's for you, not your parents. Use it for something that matters to you." She smiled shyly. "I'm saving for a laptop for college." "Good," I said. "You're planning ahead. I'm proud of you." After a long silence, she looked down. "Things at home are rough. Mom's working nights now. Dad's picking up extra shifts. They argue a lot about bills." I nodded, sipping my tea. "I'm sorry to hear that." Part of me meant it. The other part didn't. They keep saying you turned your back on us, she continued softly, that you were supposed to help, and now they have to do everything alone. I gave a faint smile. I helped them for years. I gave your mom $40,000 for her house. I paid for your braces, your brother's computer, your grandparents' roof, and after all that, they still wished I'd been in an accident. So now I'm helping people who actually wish me well. Emma's eyes filled with quiet understanding. I get it, she said. Really, I do. She reached across the table, hesitant, then took my hand. I'm glad you're happy, she said, even if they don't understand it. We talked about her classes, her art, a boy she liked, but was too shy to admit it outright. When we parted, she hugged me, not out of guilt, but warmth. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. Days passed, then weeks. I began to notice the small things again. The smell of rain on concrete, the flicker of the city skyline at dusk, the way quiet could hum like music. Peace didn't arrive like a revelation. It settled in gradually, soft as dust. Then, one afternoon, a letter appeared in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable, Kelly's. My pulse jumped despite myself. I carried it to the kitchen, set it on the counter, stared at it for several minutes. Then, curiosity won. The letter began with an apology, long, tearful sentences about regret and misunderstanding. She wrote that she'd been under stress, that it was all a joke gone wrong, that the kids missed me, that the family wasn't the same without me. And then, halfway down the page, came the pivot. We're struggling right now. Mark's hours were cut, and I've been trying to keep things together. If you could help, just this once, maybe for the kids' tuition or groceries, it would mean everything. I folded the letter neatly, without finishing it. The same script, dressed differently. An apology wrapped around an invoice. I slid it into the trash, right beside a used tea bag, and thought, maybe love and money should have never lived in the same house. That night, I looked out over the city lights, feeling no anger, no sadness, just clarity. Family wasn't supposed to feel like an obligation you had to survive. It was supposed to be a choice. And I had finally made mine. A full year slipped by, soft and steady. Seasons came and went without a single knock on my door, without a single guilt-laced phone call. The silence that once frightened me had become my favorite sound. Every morning, I brewed coffee, opened the curtains, and watched light crawl across the walls of my apartment. There was a peace in routine, in knowing that no one would demand, accuse, or pretend. I spent Tuesdays and Thursdays at the food bank, stacking canned goods and sorting donations with people who didn't care about my last name or my bank balance. They just liked that I showed up. One of the volunteers, a retired teacher named Nora, always saved me a seat at lunch. She talked about her garden, her late husband, her stubborn cat. I talked about books. We never talked about family. It was perfect. On Saturdays, I took a painting class at the community center. My instructor once said, "We paint what we can't explain." When I tried to paint my family, the canvas stayed blank. But when I painted peace, I saw color again. My parents tried, of course. They called from time to time, always together, always with the same tone, half pity, half scolding. "Marianne, you can't stay angry forever," my mother said once. "I'm not angry," I answered. "I'm just finished." A month later, she sent an email instead. "If you keep this up, don't expect to be welcome at Christmas. We're a family, and family forgives." I stared at the words for a long time before deleting the message. It was the first Christmas I spent completely alone. And strangely, it was one of the calmest I'd ever had. I lit a candle, made soup, and read until midnight. No drama, no performance, just quiet. By spring, the gossip had spread, as gossip does. A neighbor from my old street, Mrs. Harris, spotted me at the grocery store. She placed a hand on my arm. "Your sister says you've gone off the deep end," she whispered. "Cut everyone off for no reason." I smiled gently. "There's always a reason, Mrs. Harris. People just don't like when it isn't theirs." Her face flushed. She nodded and backed away. I'd stopped needing to defend myself. The truth didn't need an audience. Meanwhile, Emma kept in touch. We met every few weeks at that same cafe. She was growing into herself, quieter than most girls her age, but observant, thoughtful. She told me she'd started saving for college, that she was thinking about studying psychology. I want to understand why people hurt each other when they say they love each other, she said one afternoon, stirring her coffee. That's a brave thing to want to understand, I told her. Just promise me you won't let understanding turn into excuse. She nodded. I won't. We sat in companionable silence for a while before she added, Mom says you'll come around eventually, that you just need time. I looked out the window at the pale April sunlight. Time doesn't heal everything, Emma. It just teaches you what's worth keeping. That summer, I joined the local book club at the library. We met every Thursday evening, 6 of us sitting in a circle surrounded by the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the faint scent of old paper. They called me the quiet one, but I liked that. Sometimes silence speaks more than explanations ever could. Around that same time, I started hearing bits and pieces about my family's struggles, mostly from Emma. The mortgage is behind, she said once. Dad's exhausted. Mom's been taking double shifts. They're trying, but it's hard. I listened, feeling something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not bitterness, just distance. Like hearing about a play I'd already left before the curtain fell. Do you ever think you'll forgive them? Emma asked gently. Maybe, I said. But forgiveness isn't about letting people back in. Sometimes it's just closing the book so you can stop rereading the same chapter. She smiled faintly, like she understood more than most adults ever would. 6 months later, she told me she'd been accepted into an honors program at school. I'm thinking about early college applications, she said. If I get into a good university, I'll apply for scholarships, but it's still expensive. Her voice faltered, and I knew what she wasn't asking. Emma, I said, when the time comes, I'll help you. Not because I owe your parents anything, but because you've earned it. You've been honest, and that's worth more than any degree. Her eyes brightened. Thank you. I won't waste it. That night, I found myself thinking back to when Kelly and I were her age. Our parents had always called Kelly the fragile one, the dreamer, the emotional one. I was the capable child, the one who could take care of herself. Every crisis revolved around Kelly's storms, and my job was always to be the shore she crashed against. I realized then that I had never really been a daughter in their eyes, just a steady place to land. And now that I'd stopped being their shore, they didn't know what to do with me. The next morning, I stood at my window as dawn bled into the sky, and I thought, maybe that's what peace really is, not the absence of family, but the absence of guilt. Months passed. The city shifted into autumn. Leaves burned gold and red outside my window. I started painting again. This time, a table with 6 chairs. Only one had anyone sitting in it, but the chair wasn't empty. It was waiting. For possibility, for choice. When Emma called the following week, she said she'd been invited to tour a nearby college campus. Will you come with me? She asked. I hesitated only for a second. Yes, I'd love to. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something better. The beginning of trust rebuilt from honesty instead of obligation. And as I hung up the phone, I realized I didn't need my old family anymore. I was already building a new one, quietly, deliberately, with people who saw me as a person, not a wallet. I had chosen peace. Emma's high school graduation fell on a warm June afternoon, the kind where the air shimmered like glass. I sat near the back of the auditorium, blending in with the crowd of proud parents and families waving small bouquets. The stage lights painted everything in gold, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was nervous or just overwhelmed by how much time had passed. When they called her name, Emma Collins, honors distinction, I clapped, quietly but steadily. She crossed the stage, smiling with the calm pride of someone who'd already decided who she wanted to be. Kelly and Mark sat near the front. I saw the back of their heads but didn't look for their eyes. There was no need. We existed in parallel now. Same room, different worlds. After the ceremony, Emma found me outside near the parking lot. Her cap was crooked, her cheeks flushed pink from the heat. She ran up and hugged me so hard the tassel brushed my face. You came, she said, breathless. Of course I did, I said. I wouldn't have missed it. I handed her a small envelope. For college, I said. Books, computer, something useful. She opened it, saw the check, and gasped. 5,000? Aunt Marianne? It's a start, I said. You earned it. She hugged me again. You've done so much for me, even when I didn't deserve it. You apologized, I said. And you meant it. That's what matters. She nodded, blinking fast. I wish Mom could see that. Maybe one day, I said softly. But that's not your burden to carry. We talked a while longer. about dorm shopping, her new roommate, her plans to study psychology. She had grown into her own, gentle but firm, carrying a kind of grace her parents never learned. When we finally said goodbye, she whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me." I smiled. "You gave me a reason not to." Driving home, I realized how light I felt. The years of bitterness had become something else. Not forgiveness exactly, but balance. The ledger of my life finally made sense. I remembered the $40,000 I'd given Kelly all those years ago, the down payment for the house that had become a stage for my humiliation. For a long time, that number haunted me, like a debt I'd paid to prove my worth. But now, it felt like a closed chapter, one line in a much longer book. I thought of the $100,000 I'd given to the foundation instead, money that had sheltered families, fed children, bought time for people who needed it. That was the trade I hadn't known I was making, and it was worth it. I spent that summer quietly. I volunteered, read more, traveled a little. In every new city I visited, Vancouver, Santa Fe, even the Oregon coast, I found small thrift stores and bought secondhand picture frames. I never filled them. I just liked the idea of empty frames waiting for new memories, not haunted by old ones. Sometimes when I came home, I found letters from my parents or Kelly waiting in my mailbox. I never opened them. The handwriting alone told me everything I needed to know. Urgency, regret, guilt disguised as love. I placed them all in a box labeled unanswered, sealed it, and pushed it to the back of my closet. By autumn, peace wasn't something I chased anymore. It was simply how I lived. I took long walks at dusk, the kind that make you believe endings can be beautiful too. I cooked meals just for myself and learned to eat slowly. I laughed more, with people who didn't know my history, the volunteers, the painting classmates, the librarian who always recommended novels about strong, stubborn women starting over. I was one of them now. Then, one evening in October, as the sun melted into the skyline, my phone buzzed. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. Then something nudged me, not curiosity, but instinct. I answered. "Hi, Aunt Marianne?" The voice was young, tentative. It took a second to place it. "Tyler?" "Yeah," he said. His voice had deepened since I last heard it, but it still carried that boyish uncertainty. "I got your number from Emma. I hope that's okay." I hesitated, then said softly, "It's okay. What's on your mind?" He exhaled shakily. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For that day. At the barbecue. I was 12. I laughed because everyone else laughed. I didn't know what it meant until later. I think about it sometimes and I feel sick." I closed my eyes. The wind outside rattled the window slightly, like the world was listening too. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "That took courage." "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said quickly. I wanted you to know I never hated you. I looked up to you. You were always kind to us." I smiled faintly. "Maybe one day we'll have coffee, like I do with your sister." "I'd like that," he said. "And, congratulations on being happy." I laughed, softly, genuinely. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. When the call ended, I sat there for a long while, staring at the quiet city below. For the first time, the thought of my family didn't make my chest tighten. It just made me grateful. For distance, for growth, for the strange mercy of time. I realized something profound then. Family isn't a birthright. It's a choice you make. Sometimes again, sometimes never. And love doesn't always sound like forgiveness. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it sounds like peace. I'm 48 now. I have my health, my independence, and a life that belongs entirely to me. I volunteer, I paint, I laugh easily. I am not someone's bank account or consolation prize. I am simply me. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story too.